Well, a bit of a blast from the past today. This is the Upper Teign at Fingal Bridge, and this is where I first started fly fishing for trout some 40 years ago now. Still seems a bit hard to believe that that's correct, but it is. I'm just having a few casts here under the bridge just for old time's sake, but I'm going to walk downstream in a minute. So this fishing is controlled by the Upper Teign Fishing Association, and it's available on day tickets. You can get a weekly ticket, I think, for trout, but day tickets for salmon and sea trout. They also do a ticket which is trout and sea trout, which I thought was quite a novel idea. Oh, Mr. Rise. Only small fish in here, I expect. Yeah, so you can come and fish for trout. Tiny. You can come and fish for trout and then stay on afterwards and have a go for sea trout. It's really a novel approach. I'll put a link in the description to their website. Well, that was a bit of fish. Just scared. Damn. Yeah, I'll put a link into to their website so you can have a look at the prices and a look at the membership stats as well. The other thing, of course, we've got on this river is a local guide. So Richard Jackson, the Devon fly fisher, he's been guiding on this river for years. So if you're just starting, or if you've maybe done a bit of reservoir fishing and want to get into rivers, have a look. I'll put his website in the description as well, so you can have a look there if you want a bit of help. I'm making a right mess of this. Like everywhere else, this river's crying out for some rain. I had a quick look on the website for the latest catch returns, and it says, yeah, the low water has made tricky conditions. I mean, the best fishing here is when it's been after a flood and you've still got that little tinge of colour in the water. That's what you want. But it doesn't mean I can't show you round, so go and have a look around some of the old haunts. Really should have had a fish in here, really. I've managed to hook one of the little chaps. It's a little par, I think. You think that barbless hook would stay in so well, would you? It's definitely barbless. Well, there we are. My first Teign trout for about a dozen years, I should think. Right, well, that's enough of that. What I'm going to do now, I think, is take a walk downstream and then fish back up to the car and have a bit of lunch and then show you upstream a bit. And we'll see what the day brings. Not much looking up at the moment. What I thought I'd do is try out some of the techniques in the flies that I used to use years ago. Let's see if we can still catch something on them. I suppose while I'm here I should just have a quick mention about the old pub here. I mean, this is now called the Fingal Bridge Inn, but for many, many years it was run by the Price family, and it was the Angler's Rest. And in there on the walls they had some massive casts of fish and huge salmon and sea trout that I think one of the previous members of the family had caught back in the 20s or the 30s. And when you were like 8 or 9 looking at these fish, it just seemed unbelievable that they ever swam up this river here. And people would tell you that but of course back in the 30s. That was before they built Fernworthy Reservoir on the South Teign, so the river had more water in it. As if that made some sort of difference. The other thing they had in there was they used to serve all the beer in the old pint glasses with the handles, and they kept them all above the bar on hooks, and somebody had dressed the hooks with great big gaudy chicken feathers, so they looked like a ceiling full of salmon flies. I don't expect you'd get away with it now in terms of hygiene rules, but yeah, I liked it. Oh, one more thing. Strange. I think I'm going to be reminiscing most of today, remembering stuff. But on the way to the gents, or the ladies and the gents, they'd set a window into the wall, and in behind it was like a little tiny shop with fishing rods and reels and the old aluminium wheat leaf fly boxes. It used to take ages to go to the toilet because you kept stopping to look in this. It was like a child looking in the sweet shop window. All gone now, all boarded up. There we are. Those times move on, don't they? Quite nicely done. Well, there was a time when I knew these pools like the back of my hand. I'm trying to remember where the good spots were. Okay, so I've walked downstream a bit to just below Prestonbury Bend, I used to call it. I don't know what it's still called that. And I've rigged up with, I suppose these days you'd call it duo, but I learnt it as the rye fly, so a mixture between wet and dry fly from Nicholas Fitton's book. And so on the dropper, like a little 2-inch dropper, I've got my favourite Wickham, but I've put a deer hair wing on it, like you would on a Neff Caddis. So that's what I used to use my dropper. And on the point there was only really one fly, and that was the Sawyer's pheasant tail nymph tied with copper wire. No tungsten beads or any of that stuff in those days. And we'll give us a go then through some of the slightly faster runs. The river is very low. It should be up here somewhere, from what I recall. So I'm not expecting to catch a lot, but it's more just a day out really. So what I might do is take it easy during the day, maybe go home later on, have a little break, and then go back out to Mill End in the meadows up above Drogo Weir and see if we still get an evening rise up there. Probably going to be the best chance for a fish, I should think, today as the light falls. I saw a rise over that side, but I think the fly was bigger than the fish. Got a nice pair of dippers up here in front of us. We're going to spook them. Oh, okay. Just a go. Well, I'm struggling. I've had one tiny fish to that nymph. I'm starting to remember now what a cruel mistress she can be, this river, when the conditions aren't right. I'm sure looking at it you're thinking, Chris, why did you ever stop fishing here? But I used to come and fish here with my dad and my brother, and they've both moved away, and it isn't the same. Too many memories. A nasty downstream wind today, which isn't helping. The only fish I've seen rise, I think, are taking little tiny smuts or gnats or whatever, so I've swapped back over to a dry fly. I'm going to try Mike Weaver's Black Gnat. Actually, Mike was the chairman for this club for many, many years, and that was another great thing about growing up fishing this river, is that you could watch people like Mike Weaver and Waddy Ray and other, you know, really good anglers and see how they went about it. And they always seemed quite willing to give their time, you know, to a young lad bothering them. You'd think they would have got annoyed, but never seemed to. I think they were just glad to have some juniors in the club. And we've picked a day for it today. I'm going to be made to look completely inadequate. Well, it's not much of an advert for her, is it, really? Struggling like this. It's just jumped out of the water over there. It's exactly like you've heard me say before about the tall. You'd think there's no fish in it, but they're here. They're just turned off at the moment. I'm going to have a go with my old favourite fly from when I used to fish the Teign. And this is a Beacon Beige. It's a pattern that I got out of David Collier's book that my dad had, fly dressing. And it's got the same hackle and tail as a Adams, but the body is the peacock quill. This used to be my go-to pattern for the Teign. But if I'm honest, I never really found them to be that fussy about fly pattern. It's more about approach and presentation and stuff. If they're a rising, they'd take most things. You could use an Adams or a pheasant tail or grey duster. All these patterns would catch. Oh, yeah. Oh well. It wasn't very big, but it took it. I actually saw it come up and looked at it and sort of followed it downstream and decided to have it. Ah, the Beacon Beige. Look at that up through there. Isn't that stunning? You can see why this is such a popular beauty spot. Somewhere around here, it might be a bit more downstream than we've got to. There's a spot that's said to be out of BB's book, Confessions of a Carp Fisher. Any carp fishermen watching this, they've read that about the old copper mine. There's a fish. Oh. Tiny. Yeah, the old copper mine, and Jim the postman, who comes to the local beauty spot and catches a salmon. Well, the beauty spot was here, and that spot's somewhere down this way, apparently. Can't forget. There we go. These are just little par, aren't they, really? Yeah, according to Jack Price, who was the older of the Prices at the pub when I knew it. That was down here somewhere. They have to run back and get the net or the gaff or something, don't they? And all the holiday makers follow them down, sit and watch him play the salmon. I wonder what the fishing must have been like back then. Wow. I think you might actually just slightly class that as maybe just about a trout. So I fished my way through all of this faster run here, the best as I can, and that's the only fish I've had. One quick rise and that little chap there. So I think I'm going to take a break for a minute. I'm going to sit down and just go and watch that pool up there, see if I can see anything happening. Well, I just lost a slightly better fish out of in here. I definitely think it's going to be a case today of stepping to the faster water. I saw a fish rising down there and I approached it as best I could, and literally as the fly landed on the water it scarpered. I mean, you just got no chance. So head to the pools, I think. Oh, that was a shame. I don't think it was massive, but it would have been a fish you could have called a proper fish. I'm on to the Wickham's fancy now. Fast water, Wickham's fancy. Nice big white wing so I can see it. Just for a split second I thought that was a bigger one. And I've had about half a dozen of those little chaps now, fishing through this faster water. But yeah, I think the bigger fish are either hiding up or just dropped into all the deeper pools because of the low water. Still, it's a lovely spot to be, isn't it? You can't moan. I'm quite happy just to come here and just walk. Well, I often do. And fishing's a bonus. I don't think it's really a very fair reflection on the place though. It's probably just as hard as this today on the upper Tor. Alright, let's see if we can beat 5-inch size. Might be it. Is it over 5 inches? Where's it gone? Oh, I might break the net out. I've done it. What's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to them. Oh, it's yes, massive. Proper trout. Isn't that beautiful? Ah, and he's off. Well, I've had a few more of those little chaps, but nothing really decent. So I think I'm going to go back to the car now and have some lunch, and then I'll show you upstream. I can't see it being any better upstream of the bridge, but this is more about showing you around really, isn't it, than proper attempt at fishing. This is tough. Well, I'm fishing upstream of the bridge now. Wind's picking up a bit. It does seem odd to be fishing these pools again, I must say. I think my dad had it too bad really when we were younger, because he would say to my mum, "Oh, I'm going to take the boys fishing." So he'd bring us down here, and then magically, somewhere around sort of 7 o'clock, all the adults would disappear, and me and my brother would have the river to ourselves, as long as we stayed within the confines of the meadow, so up to Finger Weir Pool or down to where the old mill is. You can catch some good fish too. In fact, sometimes it was the best of the fishing during the day. They'd all gone to the pub. Well, this is Finger Weir Pool, then where we used to come and fish for sea trout. Turn my back to the wind, I think, otherwise I won't hear me. Yeah, if you were careful in the summertime, you could climb over there, creep along the banks and look in underneath those trees, and all the sea trout would be stacked up underneath there. And come and fish here at night. I mean, nobody really seemed to fish streamers back in those days, but I do wonder now what somebody would have said if I turned up here with a 7-weight and a dog knobbler just as the spate was falling and said I'm fishing a streamer for brown trout. I'm sure there would have been a few raised eyebrows. It's about the best sort of size I can do today. A 5-7 inch fish. What is that? Oh, maybe 6. I did hook a nice one back down there on the top of Fingal Pool, but came off as I was bugging around with the camera. So there we are. What can you do? Had a few risers coming up through here, but they're so small, they're so fast, I can't hook them. Right, well I think I'm going to make this the last pool and then come back in the evening. I've ended up fishing a bloody great mayfly because I saw one taken in a pool down there. They wouldn't take this one. And I've actually risen a few fish on it, but they can't get it in their mouths. They're so tiny. Yeah, the club's website wasn't lying when it said that we're experiencing tricky conditions at the moment. Yeah, there's fish there, look. They're tiny little things, aren't they? We'll try and eat this. No, that one's ignored it. I've tried all sorts of tiny midges and flies and things, but I don't know. I think they can see me or they can see the line or something. Perhaps I should have used a little nymph or something like that. Right, well I think I'm going to go home then and listen to the cricket and stuff. And might see you later on by Mill End Bridge. Let's see whether it's any easier in the evening once the light gets off the water. Well, I'm back on the river. They're not getting any bigger. Stop that. So it's now about 7 o'clock, I suppose. And I've walked down from Mill End Bridge. I'm going to fish back to the car. This always used to be the way of it years ago, is that you'd fish the gorge in the daytime and then come up into the meadows, fish in the evening. Of course, back then you could sort of rely on the fact that there'd be some sherry spinners, blue-winged olive spinners about, but unfortunately in Devon there's been a massive decline in blue-winged olives. They were so common before. It's declined a lot recently. Well, not recently, last 10 years I suppose. So I'm not sure if we'll get any sort of evening rise. I don't think I've fished here for about 30 years, trying to think about it. I've been down to Fingal a few times. I've even fished down at Clifford, lower down a few times. But I can't remember coming here for ages. Ages and ages. There is just the odd fish rising. I've put on a polywing spinner that we used to use, straight out of Mr. Weaver's book. Just for tradition's sake, really. I haven't seen any spinners. I haven't seen any dancing either, but let's see if we can get a fish on one. They might take it anyway. You know, I'd forgotten how lovely this river is. It's a shame she's not giving of her best really for this, but you never know. It looks so perfect. Do you think there'd be fish rising now? Wouldn't you? Well, it's still not massive, but it is a fish. It's been really tough. Isn't that stunning? Yeah, a few little pale wateries hatching, so I've tried a Tups. Good old Tups indispensable. Didn't look at anything else. I don't know if the camera's picking this up in this light, but there's loads of spinners out here in the meadows. Some mating there, look. They're just not getting down onto the river yet. Do I still have to wait even longer? Well, it's still not massive, is it? But it's not a par. There's a couple of fish rising here now. They fatly ignored that, didn't they? Right, I'm going to try the little spinner again. See if we can get one to take it. Didn't seem to want it. I don't think they're taking the spinners. No, I'm drifting. Oh, yes, it took it. Just about to say I'm drifting this right over fish and they're not having it. That one did. It's pulling well. Oh, it is pulling. I don't think it's that big. Like turbocharged fish. Well, it's the best one of the day. That really fought really well, didn't it, for that little chap? Whoa, it's still going. What is that? About 9-inch fish. Finally, something you could actually call a trout. It's starting to rain a little bit. Don't do that. It just started rising, you bugger. Ah, ah, ah. Oh, it's pinged off. I'm catching a few more now, but they're all little tiny chaps. I don't expect you can see, but the spinners are starting to get a bit lower to the water now. Just need them to come and lay their eggs. So I've had a few on the old spent wing sherry spinner, which is nice, brings back some memories. I've known it here before in the past where in the stiller pools it would look like rain. The fish rising, so many rising. Well, I think I'm going to have to call that it. It must be 9:30 now, so I'm going to get hung, drawn and quartered when I get home. It's nice to know you can still come here and catch fish on the sherry spinner. Didn't really go mad, there's not lots of fish rising, but had a few, so can't complain. I mean, it's just a beautiful spot, isn't it? Right, well, I'll catch you next time. Back on home waters, I expect.